So guys, at the start of this year, I replaced my trusty M3 Touring with an unlikely replacement, and that is the new G87 M2 to be my singular family daily car. Now, if the new M2 is of any interest to you at all in terms of a potential purchase, this is the video that you've been waiting for. I've done over 5,000 miles now as an owner. I'm going to fill you in on all the topics that are actually genuinely relevant to you. So here's the plan. I'm going to do a recap on my deep dive on the G87 so you remember exactly what makes this car. Then we will go over what model year updates are happening this year in 2024 in terms of new options you can get. I'll then tell you how best to set up this car as an owner, because there's so many new things to take advantage of in BMW's new operating system and with the newer cars that you simply need to know about, including some really annoying things, and I'll teach you how to get rid of them. And then finally we will go for a drive and I will fill you in on how it's been living with this car versus the M3 and various other competitors. And finally, right at the end, I'm going to show you the best mods that you can get from BMW M, and we're going to mod my car and completely change the look of it by the end of the video and unveil that to you as well. So like I said, if you love the M2, if you're interested in it, this is the video for you. Let's dive in and check out my brand new BMW M2. So guys, the M2 has been BMW's best-selling model ever since it's come out, with over 60,000 sales in the last generation, and the new one is showing no signs of slowing down, despite the fact that it's got that higher price point and keyboard warriors all moaning about the weight of the car. Now, in terms of the price, the entire market has risen, and BMW have been doing quite a few good deals, so that's not as relevant as it perhaps was at the start. And in terms of the weight, well, we'll talk about that today because it's really relevant for when I go for a drive. Before that, let's remind ourselves what sits under the skin of this wide, brutish M car. Now, the formula is pure BMW M. This is a rear-wheel drive only coupe with an inline-six engine and available in both manual and automatic transmission. And in addition to that, it has those brutish BMW M looks. So these are all things it's been happy to inherit from the past of M. But it also inherits a lot from its elder sibling in the BMW M4. So much so that you might actually wonder what's the point of the M4, which is something that we will discuss today. So namely, we first have the S58 inline-six engine. In this, it produces 460 brake horsepower, 550 Newton meters of torque, and a 0-60 of 4.1 seconds. Again, something that we will test today when we go for a drive. That then links to either the 8-speed Steptronic transmission or the 6-speed manual, and then you got M's famous M adaptive suspension, which is brilliant, and we'll talk about that later in the review. Then you get lots more carryover from M3 and M4. For example, the track oil cooling measures that those cars employed. We've got all the chassis tech and rigidity measures that they employed in those cars as well. And even the track width is the same as the M4, which when you look at this car in person, you can really believe because of just how wide and square it looks. Of course, you've got M's performance exhaust system, we've got larger brakes of 380 millimeters, and finally, standard fit, M's active rear differential. So that entire package kind of makes you wonder, why would you bother with the M4? Because it literally steals everything from it. And that's something that we will discuss today. What I really love about this car, particularly versus that M4, is just how good it looks. Yeah, we've got the standard grille, but it's also a massive departure from the standard 2 Series. I love how the two of them look completely different to each other, like totally. Almost every panel of the M2 is unique. And actually, let's talk about design because I love the design of this car. M truly stands for muscle in their newer cars. This M2, the brand new M5, seriously wide, and this new blocky, really in your face DNA that M have developed for their newer cars. I'm all for it. This car is 21 centimeters shorter than the M4, and it's 3.3 centimeters wider than the previous M2, and it's shorter as well, and it really looks it. You look at that front end, kind of how wide it is, how much the arches stick out both on the front and the rear. It is simply a really impressive looking thing in person. Things that really help it is like the lights that are different enough to the 2 Series. They've got that extra little fake vent, but then this kind of sculpture that like they're almost sliced into the bodywork, which looks so good. These things, they were a bit Marmite at the start. I think we all kind of appreciate, yes, it's quite blocky, yes, it's almost, I don't know, rally car like, or you know, is it like more like an over exaggerated concept car, but it just looks good. You've got a fairly normal type of BMW M grille there as well, not like the M3 and the M4, a bit more pure. The side sills massive and protruding. You can see they're just huge. You'll probably kick those a lot, something that we'll get onto in a minute. And then big wide rear arches as well. But it's not just any one part of this, it's how the sum total of all of them come together to make a really muscular and aggressive looking BMW M2 in my estimation. What's nice is when I was ordering this, things like the carbon roof came standard, which is great because it's a 6 kg decrease in weight. From what I could see online, the rear end was the one that divided people more. I really like it. I really like the sharp cuts. I really like how it mirrors the front, how it's almost like, I kind of described it as like a jet fighter type look on the rear. And I've enjoyed living with it. I've enjoyed seeing it on the road when I'm following it in one of my other cars. It just has that road presence, and you'll see later when we've got some really nice tracking shots car to car of this, what I mean by that. But yeah, modern MDNA really suiting this, I think. It looks stocky, it looks wide, it looks almost square, like the M2 always did, but just brought into this new generation of BMW M. Now, there have been some model year updates for this year if you start to order an M2 now, and some of them, they're good, they give you some good benefits, and some of them you'll actually be paying more for, so I thought I should fill you in on those. First of all, there's been a power bump apparently, where this car goes now up to 480 brake horsepower and a slightly quicker 0 to 60 of just 0.1 quicker basically. But I've heard down the grapevine that there is apparently no change to the software. Rather, the quoted figure is just more accurate now. How true that is, I don't know until I actually get to drive a newer model year one. So take that with a pinch of salt. Apart from that, the other changes are to the options available on this car. First of all, we've got a whole host of new colours, both in the standard portfolio, colours that we've seen on other cars, and in BMW's individual program, so you can really customise this car, which is great because really when I was ordering it, this was the only colour that I really liked, and it is beautiful in this matte blue, but it's great to have a few more choices now as well. The other thing you get is these wheels, but in a silver finish, which looks surprisingly amazing, actually. I really like that. And finally, you get a new black badge with silver lining on the rear, matching the new M5 in its style. However, now less comes standard. For example, before, carbon fibre roof in the UK was actually a standard option, as was carbon fibre trim on the inside. Now you have to get the M race package, which also gives you the carbon buckets in order to get those two options. So base model car, though the same price, you're actually getting less. So you might be better off buying one of these. The other big change on the inside though, is you get that wonderful BMW M new steering wheel like we found in the LCI M4. And really, that is a really nice wheel to get your hands on. Now guys, I really want to show you how to set this car up in the best way that I've found for personal use, for family use. So let's jump in. I'm going to give you a bit of advice as to what I did in the M2. So guys, let's talk M car setup. The first thing I set up as a family car is, of course, popping the kids' seat in the back. And let us start with how much space you actually have as an adult in the back as well, because this is a deceitfully large interior. So guys, me jumping in the back, this is roomy in here, right? I got at least a couple of inches over my head. I'm 5'10" in height. It feels very reminiscent to the space you have in the M4. It's more than things like Bentley Continental, obviously more than DB12, AMG GT, etc. It's a genuinely livable, like you could sit in here for a long journey. And that's why it's been so successful as a daily with the kids in the back. They've been more than happy tickling me, especially from behind, through these bloody holes that have been absolutely infuriating. But it's fun. But the good thing is, this paired with suspension is what has made this car so successful for us. Of course, this is the benefit of getting what was called the Ultimate Pack, now the Race Package. Really, I think it's the one to go for because you get these wonderful carbon fibre bucket seats that are still adjustable and they just look absolutely gorgeous. My fellow Asian viewers, African viewers, etc., don't worry, I've not removed a singular piece of plastic from this car. It is all beautifully protected, do not worry. So this is a great interior. It takes so much from the M4 and gives it to 2 Series customers, which is great. because before it was based on the 1 Series and really it looked it as well. Now, literally, it's just stolen swathes and swathes of the quality from the M3 and the M4 and thrown it into the Tour. So that is no bad thing at all. Now, in terms of setup, the first thing that you absolutely must do is this. Set up an account, sign in, get a BMW ID, because a lot of the benefits of these new systems is linked to the fact that you have an ID. And look, as a bonus, you can put a funny little picture of yourself as well, like I've done being arrested by M-Town police. Now, it's well worth doing. For example, it allows you to access the connected drive store, and there's nothing there because I've subscribed to everything that you can get on here. For example, one of the best things I did right at the start was the active cruise with stop and start control. What this does essentially makes driving during stop and go traffic easier. The car will help you with setting off and then stopping, etc. So that was quite a nice addition to the driver assistance package element. You got things like the remote services that you can then tie to the app. We'll go into the app in a minute. Alexa, the digital key that I'm going to show you now, which is actually really cool. Lots of things in here that you can then access because of the BMW ID. And look now, the My BMW app is actually really, really good. You can even choose different themes in the app, for example, a more BMW M styled one, or all these other zany type of ones that you have available here. So the app is really good. We'll get onto the app in a second. What's great about it is the widgets that it gives you on your phone. For example, on my iPhone's home screen, I can add a My BMW widget, which you can see can either be your fuel level, and you've got a choice of 2 different sizes, or a straight shortcut into the My BMW app should you want it, and then that appears on your screen. And I can't see any of the other German manufacturers having done that at the moment, so that's really cool. Better than that though are the widgets that you get. For example, look at this. You got these shortcuts that you can place. You got a ton of choices of different widgets like remaining range, vehicle status, last journey, journey statistics, or the larger one here with all the remote services on there. Let's chuck that onto. And there you can see we've added a couple, and you can add as much information or as many of these as you want, and it gives you a nice glance as to what's going on in the car. So that's the first thing when it comes to setup. Get the BMW ID, get the BMW app. Next, if you're using something like CarPlay, make sure, for God's sake, that your wallpaper matches everything else. What do I mean by that? The last thing you want on this massive screen here is to have some silly Apple wallpaper. So what I did was I chose just plain black. It matches exactly the style of the BMW screens, so it's nice and seamless between both of them. It doesn't look alien all of a sudden. And when you head back into BMW M then, it doesn't look any different. So make sure you make your CarPlay background black. The other thing that the app will allow you to do is set up a digital key. So you can use your phone in order to unlock the car and even drive the car. To do that, we need both keys, which we have here. Then you simply continue the setup, and then if you place it on the reader here, it will add the key, hopefully, to our Apple Wallet as well. And there you go. We've got my M2 key sitting right there, which means I can unlock it. I can place the iPhone in there and drive the car as well, which is really useful for idiots like me who often forget car keys, etc. As an emergency, you can drive your car, unlock your car with your phone wallet now. And in fact, the same is true of this, which is a BMW M card, which you can do the exact same thing with and drive your car or lock and unlock it as well. Now, some other really important things. You've got this brilliant home screen. We had nothing like it in the previous M2, right? With all of these widgets, you got the live data of the car itself. It's good to make use of this screen because there's so much data on here. So make sure that you tailor the widgets exactly the way you want them, whether you want the weather, whether you want the live data of the car, engine, the tyre thing with the nice M1 thing. It's the same when it comes to our driver zone here, which I'm guilty of not using enough. And it's really there for you to customize this car to your own liking. Of course, this screen changes as soon as you hit the M mode button. We go from the more traditional display to choosing something like Sport, and that will change your display to the more BMW M1. And again, still customizable. So make sure you make use of the driver zone here and tailor it to your needs. Now, one thing I'm very passionate about, as you guys know, is exhaust sound, right? So you've got this exhaust button here, which is in fact absolutely useless, right? There's the car on, you press it, it doesn't really do much, okay? There's a bit of a change when the flaps move. To have a real change of exhaust when you're driving, what I did was set up my M1 button to to be like a cheat exhaust mode. See, did you hear the difference there? That's a proper exhaust button now. How did I do this? Let me show you. We go into our setup menu, and as you can see, I've set M1 to have the engine on sport, which is what will unlock the flaps properly. I've set the chassis to sport here as well. You don't have to do that. You can just leave it as is, and you can change the steering, etc. Whatever you want. You can leave it all comfort and just the engine on sport, and you will get the flaps to open wider, which is great. And then I've set M2 to be my much sportier one that we will use later on when we're driving. So that is a little hack. Make this your proper exhaust button by changing those settings. Now, as great as all this stuff is, there's some annoying new things that have come from EU government, etc. And one of those is when you're apparently going over the speed limit, which is not always true because the cameras and the navigation systems are dumb, you'll get a consistent dong telling you you're going over the speed limit. And it's really annoying. It doesn't matter what you do with this, you can't actually turn it off. So in order to turn it off, after you started the car, you have to hold the set button, and then you'll get a notification saying that the speed warning has been turned off, but you have to do that every single time. At least there's a way to turn it off, because a lot of manufacturers don't offer that. Now, boot space, very important for a daily car, for a family. This boot doesn't open up with the key. So one annoying thing that you will not like if you come from M3 or M4. So they aren't equal, and we will keep talking about that in this video. But the boot itself, loads of space. It is a good size boot for a two-door car. Removing the pram, you can see we've got quite a lot of space. And this has to be taken in and out a lot, so a lot of chance of damage happening, which is why I really want to talk to you about how and what to protect on this car, which I'll get onto. But yes, lots of space. And look, some of our first parts to do with the mods that we're doing right at the end of the video, I love the BMW M heritage badges that link to the origins of the tricolor. I absolutely love them. So I've saved these. I bought these right when I got the car, and these will go on along with a ton of other things. Wait till the end of the video to see what those are. So guys, that's how I would recommend to set up the car. Now, before you drive it hard, make sure you run the car in. Of course, this car is run-in. You have to do the running in service. But before any of that, before the tires even touch the tarmac, you have to protect it. Don't roll your eyes at me. I'm not talking about full PPF if you don't want to do it. But especially if it's a frozen color or an individual one or any color, because of the bills you could wind up with later, there are some areas that I've identified on this car that you absolutely must protect. To do that, I went to Topaz before I put any miles on it, and I want to show you what areas those are, so you can do those at minimum and then drive carefree that your car is protected and it's future-proof. Let's head to Topaz and I can show you what to do on the M2. So guys, here's the M2 all done and dusted at Topaz. I'm going to walk you through everything that I decided was the right solution for using the M2 as a daily car, particularly in the winter in a place like the UK. As always, they've got some wonderful cars here. There's an M Brother, lovely quadrifoglio there, and many, many toys, as they're always working on. So guys, with the M2, what I decided to do was a full frontal protection, and I've also done side sills and one other space on the boot that I'm going to show you now. Now, the reason that I did only the front end on this, I'm weighing it up as you guys would. Now, this is a car that costs around about 60k, right? How far do we want to go in terms of expenditure to protect the car? I think spending around about £2,000 to protect the front end is the right choice. Now, I've gone a little bit beyond that because I've also decided to do the massive side sills, which I think are an impact area, and one other place that I'll explain to you on the back. So on the front, we've done the full front and the bonnet, which includes our wings here as well. And we have done the headlights. So if we go close up, you can't even see where it's laid. There are cuts here and there, but they're placed in a way that you can't see them at all. Always done nice and tight. And there's numerous facets to this M2 front end as well. So it's not just, say, the bumper work, which is of course the satin paint work, which is the main thing that we really want to protect, but it's also the gloss black elements. So these have all been PPF'd with gloss PPF as well. Again, you can't tell, but you can imagine this getting battered, can't you, when you're driving these cars fast. And we've done the internal parts of the grille as well. Same with these elements here, all done, all PPF'd, all protected. And of course, like I said, the headlights, which are a main area. So getting that done at minimum, you're going to save yourself so much headache, which I wish I would have done with my Taycan. Anyway, you live and learn, and that's not a mistake I'm going to make again, and I'm going to make sure you guys don't as well. The other high impact area, and you have to judge this when you see the shape of a car, I thought was this side sill. because the M2 is such a stodgy car. And you just look at that side sill, it is massive. And you can imagine with kids coming in and out of it. And then the final part that I requested raised a few eyebrows, but then they kind of understood where I was coming from. And that was another impact area right here on the rear. And something I found, again, living with kids, is that they sometimes just don't care about bodywork when it comes to boots, right? So what I decided to do was this entire section on the rear here, which is this high impact area for pulling things out of the boot like prams and boxes and luggage, etc. We've done a strip that goes right from this edge all the way across, and you can barely see it, like it's basically invisible. It's a really good job. But again, something like that, at minimum, if you don't want to do the whole car like I don't want to do, that is necessary. There, my 50-year caps sitting here. We'll pop those on when we actually mod the car. And I've got a couple of products here from Topaz that I wanted to talk about. One is this bug remover, again for a car like the M2 that's going to be used heavily, particularly in the summer months when you're enjoying the rear-wheel drive car. Something like this is indispensable. They've just started an all-purpose cleaner, which is actually so good that you can use it to degrease an engine bay or a wheel arch and correct an interior. That's how versatile this is, which is why it literally says versatile on there. I was so impressed. So I'm looking forward to living with that. And the other thing that we've got here is Hydrolite. Why do I need Hydrolite? What is it? This is essentially helping with hydrophobic qualities when you have ceramic done, because of course the M2 has also been ceramics by Topaz, as you can see them applying it here expertly. It's G-Technic, which is pretty much the best out there. So this is really going to help keeping the car clean, but not only keeping it clean, reducing washing times and reducing drying times, all of those elements that make cleaning and living with a car that much easier. Again, it's just worth doing. Imagine, you get, these are steel brakes that we have on the M2. You ceramic your wheels, you're going to be able to deal with the inevitable brake dust that much easier. So it's just making my life and your life a lot easier when you make the right decisions prior to driving it for the first time. And that's what we're going to do now. We're going to drive the M2. So guys, let's head out now. First drive the M2. Let's see what this new G Series Little Brute is like on UK roads. Lots of miles on the car now, well over 5,000, done the running in service, engine is well lubed up. This would be the perfect time to let loose. That's what I normally say, but actually we're going to start by driving a bit more normally, a bit more sedately, because that's 70% of how I drive this car. As I said, this is our family daily car for the last. Of course, this car replaced my M3 Touring, which was a ballsy move considering how practical that car is and how historically the M2 was not a great daily. But let me explain why it ended up working out, okay? In the default mode that this car sits in, this is Clark Kent, not Superman. It looks the same, but it doesn't have any of the vigor, none of the confidence, doesn't display any of the superpowers, but it's just good at doing the daily job in almost secret identity. In default mode, as you can see, I've easily managed 33 mpg, and that seems to be improving every single day with this car. I'm going to do a further update when we do like a 15,000 mile test with the M Performance parts on. Then we have the engine response itself, which is, it's silky smooth. It's not jerky. It's a measured power delivery. Same with the gear changes, nice and comfortable. And then you pair that to the M adaptive suspension, which is brilliant at handling, any bumps in the road, any type of unevenness. I've been really surprised by that actually, because it's really matching the M3, and it's nothing like what the old M2 was, which was quite crashy. And what you're left with is this package of this like mild-mannered BMW that just does not give away the secret identity hiding behind the M buttons. It is just chalk and cheese versus the previous M2. It's got a sophisticated ride. You've got an interior that steals the luxury, the fit and finish, the technology, and the general structure straight out of the 4 Series, and then a suspension that acts like a normal 2 Series. That is until you press the M1 button. And oh my god, the car changes. I mean, holy crap, the throttle response, the steering, the sound, the handling, it literally feels like Clark Kent just took his glasses off. Half the time it just feels too quick for the road. I mean, easily as fast as my M3. Reminds me of my Porsches. You're not going to be left wanting for a competition, which is probably why they haven't made one. All right, guys, we're in M2. Let's see what this thing does on a launch. Launch control active. Slip, 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 slip. And there we got a 0 to 60, 4.3 seconds. Pretty much as stated. Just a little bit under, actually. A little bit under, but not bad for a rear-wheel drive car. Does it ever feel a heavy car? It's a heavy car on paper. Is it a heavy car in your hands? I would say not at all. In fact, you would be hard-pressed to notice the difference between this and the predecessor. The chassis and the suspension is so dialed in. Even in sport mode, it's so keen to turn. The steering has got so much feedback. You feel almost superhuman driving this thing fast. Kind of reminds you of like the M2 CS, to be honest, in the best of ways. And the comments about the weight annoy me so much. Guys, this is 2024. Suspension tech, chassis technology, rigidity, all of these things, they've come along so far because EVs have arrived. They're so much heavier. Every automaker has found ways to manage the weight better. It's less of a relevant topic than you need to drive the car and then make your decision. But I'll tell you now, the M2 does not disappoint. It matches its predecessor punch for punch. In fact, it's beaten it on the Nürburgring. It's faster than the CS was on the Nürburgring, and rightfully so. Now look, none of this was new to me. I discovered this on my first drive video back in the USA and Arizona. But we had a lot of negative people still in the comments, like, well, it's heavy and everything. And then my mate Chris Harris drives it, and he calls the chassis sublime, and that's it. All of you are okay now. I guess, you know, that's the curse of being an amateur journalist, which is fine, I'll own it. But Chris was right, and I was right as well. This is a car that, in the right hands, absolutely matches its predecessor, absolutely feels a proper M car. And it really puts a smile on your face in that way too. My litmus test is I drive this back to back almost every day to my GT Porsches, right? And I don't drive those, jump into this and drive it and think, suddenly I've got a massive downgrade, and I can't give it higher praise than that. One letdown, I think, is the sound. It never sounds quite as good as its predecessor. Even with our little exhaust mode trick, it never sounds as good as something like the RS4 competition. Doesn't sound as good as the 6-cylinder Porsches. Sounds better than the Mercedes 6 cylinders probably. And look, it's not a bad sounding car, as you can see. But you just can't help but feel that it could be more, it could be better, and there's probably things you could do to massage it to be better. I haven't found out what those things are yet. The other side of it is the gearbox, which is, if we go into M2 mode where everything's dialed up to the max, you'll see that the gear changes pretty much instant, like really quite close to DCT actually. Not quite on CS level, and we're going to expect the M2 CS to be better, right? But, you know, genuinely fun to use, very responsive. I think a lot more than their torque converter attempts in the past, so it's a good job. So think about it this way, this is a car that weighs 200 kg more than the outgoing M2. Much like the M5, the new one weighs like 400 kg more than the outgoing M5. Weight, not that important anymore. This is an incredible bit of engineering, and in the right hands, it is a proper M car. The question arises, why get the M4 if this is such a good car? And it's a good question. And the answer is actually maybe not what you're expecting. It's actually more for the luxury and the tech. Or maybe that does make sense. There's things in this car that I miss that the M4 has. For example, 360-degree camera, which for a wide car is really important, helps save your wheels. Things like the better driving assistance with lane change and steering. Things like that. And just I think the interior of the M4 actually better trimmed in every area, more leather, you know, just it has a more premium feel, and I think that's the reason that you would gravitate towards that car now. But for the M driver, the M2 is the one to have, okay? It drives exactly as you wanted it to drive, despite the weight, and if anything, it gives me hope then for the M5, which has been criticized by everyone and their mother-in-law. I drove it a little bit on the first drive, and it seemed to be pretty damn impressive to me on that short burst on the track. So we will see, but it gives me hope. And like I said, weight, not the be-all and the end-all, guys. We need to grow up a little bit on this topic now. Again, I think we're all very good at criticizing something for not being what we expect it to be, rather than looking at it for what it actually is. And I think it's a lesson that we could all learn a little bit. You know, remove your bias before you race. You know, that's why the channel is called what it is. So far, this has been a brilliant car. It's been a great daily. The family have really enjoyed it as well. And then it's got the whole Jekyll and Hyde thing going on, which is great. And what I love about it is the looks on the road. It's so muscular, but I think we can add a bit more M. And that's what we're going to do now. We've almost reached Bury. Let's drop the car off and let's unbox those wonderful M Performance parts. So guys, here's a massive lot of goodies from BMW M. Got a pallet of brand new wheels here. Which ones have I chosen? You're going to really like them. And then a ton of other M Performance parts here as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unpack each one as a nice M5, then I'll show you what parts are going on. Then we'll come back in a couple of days and see what the finished product looks like. Right guys, I'll show you this in a second. Let's start with the smaller boxes, so the smaller parts that we have. And this one's actually quite cool. And look at the size of this. It's so light, better not drop it. This is the carbon front piece that goes into the front mouth of the M2. It just helps add a little bit more motorsport look, and then you've got that nice cut through the middle. So that's going to go on the front. The next piece to complement that is that carbon piece across the side, which is going to widen the car even more. Remember, 3 centimeters wider already than the previous M2. This is going to help that final look. And again, gorgeous, gorgeous carbon part. This is a carbon piece that's going to fit into our rear bumper to kind of match what we're doing on the front. And then one more part here, which I believe this is the M Performance spoiler that'll go on the front again. And again, another beautiful part in here. Look at that. It's gorgeous, right? And as you guys know, that will come across our side here to accentuate the already large side sills. So again, I think these are quite classy parts. I think it's going to look, I hope it's going to look good. Now the wheels, right? There's a number of choice of M Performance wheels that you can get. I've chosen what I think is going to look best because they're actually larger than the standard wheels. So come and have a look at these. These are the 1000Ms finished in matte black. Absolutely gorgeous. And like I said, larger. So there's still a staggered setup. These are the 21s. They come on brand new Yokohama Adven Sports, as you can see, supplied by BMW M. And I think these are going to look absolutely stunning on this car. And the biggest box of the lot, it's actually the one I was the most excited about, because when I first saw it, I was like, this links directly to the M homage cars and BMW M's past, and that is the massive, massive spoiler. Now we're going to leave the car here for a couple of days and come back and see what the final finished look is. Let's skip forward in time. So guys, time to finish the video on a high note. All the mods have been applied by Berry, and the car is sitting right there. Have a look. There she is, sitting under the covers. Let's have a quick sneak peek before I pull it off. You can already see the carbon splitter at the bottom there. The M logos, the new ones. Now I haven't seen this, right? No word of a lie, they haven't sent me a single picture. This is going to be as much of a surprise to me as you. What do you think? You guys are going to see it first because I can't see anything from this angle, right? How is it? Someone tell me. Have I ruined it? Is it good? What's going on here? It looks amazing from here. Guys, I think this looks absolutely stunning. I can't really tell. I think we need to get it out. Oh, that rear quarter. But we can't see it properly here. It's too narrow. It's a bit too dark. Let's get it out there and see what the M Performance parts look like on the M2 that we have chosen together. Oh God, guys, does that or does that not look absolutely brilliant? I mean, it almost looks like a special edition for the M2, but without having gone totally mental. What I wanted, like I said, was to mimic the look of the homage CSL car, which had that type of wing that we'll have a look at in a minute at the back. You know, slightly larger wheels, multi-spoke, more carbon, etc. Without going too crazy, without, you know, we don't want a Halfords edition car. And I don't think that this does that at all. The carbon parts on the front, very motorsport inspired. They all look good, they all look for purpose. So we've got the carbon front lip as we saw before we installed it, the inserts in the front mouth that look absolutely brilliant, and then your side carbon bits, which even from the front give it such a nice width now. And then finally the M badge on the front. That just that finishes the front off so nicely. But the best part of the front is having the 1 inch larger wheel. So these are the 1000 M wheels, as we said, multi-spoke. They're going to be a pain to clean, I can see it now already, but they look brilliant. They fill out the wheel arch better, a lot more high-end M car look. And then you look at the side profile, absolutely stunning. Like I said, the rear wheel, 1 inch bigger as well, and that rear quarter, I actually think it's probably better than the front. So you've got that extra carbon bit here, which looks great. The bigger rear wheel now with quite a inset alloy there that looks quite deep dish, I like it. And then this part, the wing, brilliant. I was so unsure, I'll be honest with you, I was like, is it just gonna look wrong? But that to me just looks brilliant. Of course, I'll get more shots when we go on the next drive for this car. So you can see we have the carbon inserts on the rear matching what we did on the front with the carbon inserts on the front bumper. They look really quite good. Didn't do carbon at the bottom, I don't think that's necessary, but this is the coup de grace on this spec, and I absolutely love it. So guys, that's my M2 finished off with, I think, the best M performance parts to keep the car looking more M, but still classy. There's going to be one other video now that I'm going to do, which will be probably a 15,000 mile full ownership review of this, plus obviously the parts, what they've been like living with, what they look like in the wild as well. You'll get to see what they look like on the road, so that'll be coming up. I hope you've enjoyed this first drive of my BMW M2 and how to mod it in the best way. And a huge thanks to BMW Berry for getting this done so quickly and so well. Couldn't have done it without them, and to BMW M for supplying the parts. So guys, if you've enjoyed this episode of RBR, please do like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.